here. What is your name, pronouns, where and what do you teach, and how long have you been an educator?
So my name is Garrett Chan, or Mr. Chan to my students. My pronouns are he and him. And I've been teaching in Highline School District past few years. I've also taught in Federal Way. This is my 14th year teaching. I also taught for over a year in Japan, and I taught 6 crazy weeks in Brazil.
Garrett, what are some of the challenges that you or your students experienced in the past or are dealing with right now?
Yeah, where do I begin? um, yeah, so teaching in public education, of course, there are lots of challenges. Some of it are things that are less controllable by students and teachers, like the systemic issues of education. I mean, I struggled with this a lot my first few years of teaching, is feeling sometimes like we're part of a system that does not value children of color or children from either religious ethnic groups or minority ethnic groups. So I mean, that's definitely the number one problem. Is public education is designed for middle class white people, and in order for you to be successful in public education, you need to be able to think like a white person or act like a white person. So that's interesting to me because I've always taught in quote unquote majority minority schools, where the majority of the schools are people of color. Um, Large amounts of students in the schools I've always taught at have been qualified for free and reduced lunch. So what that means is, in public education, the government paying whatever economists they want kind of set like, okay, well, what qualifies as being in poverty or poor? And so like, it's an arbitrary income level that the government has designated. And so if your family is at or below that income level, then your child does not have to pay for lunch, or they qualify for a discount on lunch price. So at the school I taught at in Federal Way, Lake Grove, like the number was always about 70 to 80% of the students came from that like economic background. And racially, the school actually was pretty diverse. It's about almost, for most of the time I was there, about 30% white, 30% African American, 30% Latino, about 10% Asian American, and Pacific Islander. But of course, you guys know those racial groups are really broad, and there's lots of diversity in them. So it's funny because, trying to teach those groups like how to function in a white-centric, white-dominant society was interesting, because even in quote-unquote the white group, like in Federal Way, a large majority of those white students were Ukrainian American or Russian American. So it's very interesting getting to learn those student stories and hear their kind of like ways of navigating America, either being a kid that was born here, but having parents, from like, Russia or Ukraine, or being an immigrant, right? Russian Ukrainian kid who outwardly appears white, but then, when they go out into the world, and then when people hear it, they have like a Ukrainian or Russian accent, like all of a sudden learning like, you're treated differently because it turns out you're not quote unquote a real white American. Yeah. And then among like our African American students, of course, a lot of diversity too, like, both students who were born here, but then also lots of African immigrants. Like our area in general, like Seattle metro area, has like a really wonderful diversity of a lot of students from East Africa. I had students also from like Nigeria and Kenya. So that was really cool, like learning all those stories too. And it's interesting because I had to learn, because I remember sitting in a conference with one dad, and he's very insistent. He's like, Mr. Chan, I don't teach my son that he's Black because I feel like there's too many negative things associated with that. It's like, I always tell my son, we are Nigerian. We are Nigerian American, or we are African Americans. So I was like, oh, that's good to know your opinion. But they're awesome. It's funny because I feel like those African immigrant parents, I saw so many commonalities with the Asian American experience, like very academically demanding, very like socially conservative. So, like they would not want their kids, in any sex or health education. Very like religiously conservative, like, parents, who take their kids to church all the time, Bible study, Saturday school, things like that. Yeah. So there is those challenges. And then I think, of course, right now, in Highline, even though it is a different school district, there's some of those same issues in public education. I feel like the school I'm at now, though, because the adults at the school represent a lot more diverse backgrounds. Most of my coworkers in Federal Way were white middle-class women. I mean, admittedly, most of them identify as politically liberal or Democrat, but I mean, there's also some very problematic things even dealing with that, because they would think like, no, I'm progressive or I'm liberal. Like, I don't have
It
a
doesn't
problem.
apply.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with racism, or I don't have a problem with white centric education. And I'd be like, like there'd be years in when I taught in Federal Way that I was the only male person of color teacher at the school, which is, I don't know, it's not fun sometimes. You always feel like, am I just being the angry Asian person who's like, you know what, maybe this is not, yeah. But the school I'm at it right now in Highline, because the staff is a lot more diverse, I feel like we're better at least addressing those problems that I mentioned. Like, it's out in the open and everybody talks about it. And I think that's the first step to addressing the issues in public education, is people just can't stop being like, well, we're Democrats, so it's not a problem. Or I'm a proud member of the union and we're proud supporters of Hillary Clinton, so there's no racism at this school. Yeah. I have so much more I can say. I want you guys to guide the interview with your questions too.
Garrett, what are some things that you want people to know about teaching in a pandemic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, I struggle with this because I don't know if Siobhan mentioned this. So when things first got shut down back in springtime, everything was just being built on the fly. The positive about that is I feel like we gave a lot more flexibility to teachers and to families about education. So at least like in my class, I teach 5th grade. We organized our schedule around 3 weekly like class meetings. Like, all the students were invited to come online and meet and talk. And then I would teach or answer questions. And then the rest of the work I try to make as flexible as possible. It'd be what is now in educational parlance called asynchronous work, which is like you assign it, they do it whenever they want, as long as it's done by the deadline. So it's very flexible. And I think we just had to do that because that's what we could put together in time on short notice. And that's what families needed because, you know, economic wise or job wise, you know, like having all of a sudden your child at home full time, for a lot of working class families, that's just hard. Either they gotta, like, you know, take days off that they wouldn't take off, they have to group their kids with like a neighbor who's not working, or like, you know, ask a relative to watch kids. So that was just tough. I think coming into autumn, things have been more organized because there were some families who felt like our kids need more from education, needs to be more rigorous. But at the same time, I think there are some other families that are still struggling with coping with the pandemic. And so I think what people need to know is like teaching is stressful for everybody. I feel like some parents, even maybe now, I fully expect maybe after the first few months, it might be adjusted again, because some parents are realizing like, I asked for more rigorous work and I can't cope with it because my kid is asking me for help all the time. So like for now, since September, it's kids are supposed to log on every single day at the exact same time, which in my school is 9:15, and then we have like a quick morning meeting for 20-30 minutes, and then there's a schedule of rotations by groups. And so students are basically expected either to be with me or working on online computer work till basically like 3:45. So it's like 6 hours of screen time for kids every day. And to ask kids to be on that much is just a lot. I mean, the only break they have, and this is the one good thing, is they get over an hour long break for lunch from 11:30 to 12:45, because for a lot of families, school was kind of the way that they could make sure their son or daughter or their child was getting food regularly. right? Because so many of my students qualify for free and reduced lunch. So that hour-long time is so kids have time to log off. They can walk to the school, or a family member can drive. They can pick up food for free. They don't have to even do like any paperwork or whatnot. All they have to do is just say, I'm a student at this school. Can I have lunch? Which is good. So it's like, that's one improvement from this pandemic, because in-person school, if you guys have ever had the fun of visiting a school during lunchtime, is crazy chaos. Like kids get like 15, 20 minutes to cram food in their mouth, and then it's off to the next thing. Yeah, it's just so stressful. I mean, for a lot of my kids, like I'm always trying to find the balance between what I know they need to know to be educated, like, whether it's reading, writing, math skills, science, social studies, and then also just the human aspect, because I've also been telling the students, it's like, yes, this is stressful, this is not normal, and it's okay if you feel like this is overwhelming, or you don't feel like doing school. Like, I try to be as honest with the students as possible, because I want them to be honest with me. It's like, yeah, if you feel like you can't do this right now, then just tell me, and I'm not going to like be a harsh disciplinarian and call your parents just because you didn't turn in this one math assignment. Because to me, our relationship as student and teacher is, I don't want to be a rigorous taskmaster. I'm here to like help. So have to be flexible. And I think parents too are very stressed out. Like, we tried to have like parent conferences before school started, which was stressful just arranging those. But I think those are really good, because I was able to help families like test out, like, is Zoom even working? Can you turn the computer on? Do you even know where the on button is on your computer? The school gave me a Google Voice account, which is good, because sometimes I don't feel comfortable using my personal phone, because then they have my number and they can call me all the time. I do that for some families or some students who I feel more comfortable with, who I know won't call me at like 2 a.m. Mr. Chan, I don't know how to do this math problem. No. But yeah, so using the Google Voice line I got from my school, I was able to like either text or like call. And I think that helped a lot of parent anxiety. But it was funny, because we started school on a Wednesday, and even Tuesday night, like parents like last minute call, like, oh no, like not sure how to connect our Chromebook to the Wi-Fi. And yeah, I think we've been luckier than most. I don't know if you guys have heard stories about Seattle School District, because Seattle School District is so big and so huge, and I can see where this was a logistical problem. But apparently many families got computers or laptops that don't even work. Like, they don't even turn on, or they can't even connect to the internet, versus like during the summer in Highline School District, the tech team did a really good job getting all of the technology ready, and even bought brand new equipment, retired some of the old computers. So I'm not doing as much tech support as I thought I might have to, which is good, because tech support sucks. That's why our country has outsourced it to other places, because nobody wants to help somebody turn on the internet or help them connect their computer, right? Not even our parents, right? Who talk to your mom or dad. Dad, just don't stop.
Yeah, I was at my parents' house on last Friday. I was getting an oil change, and like their house has like a really big, nice air filter system. And so I was just like, great, like I'm using like 2 tiny ones in my house. So this is going to be nice. I'm going to keep my mask on, and like my mom is at least 20 feet away from me. So I'm just going to sit here until my dad's done changing my oil. And my mom gets a call from someone from church saying that someone that she had met with for like 15 minutes tested positive for COVID. And so my mom's just like, oh, wonder if I should get tested. And my dad walks in and he's like, you need to get tested. My mom's like, well, maybe I can wait. And I'm like, no, you can't wait. So I'm glad that I was there on the spot to help my mom navigate the internet, like how to schedule an appointment through like the free Testoto testing site. And it was so funny, because like usually my mom is pretty good about doing stuff on the internet, but she also like takes the time to Google Translate everything.
Oh yeah.
At this point,
Japanese,
it was like, my mom was just like, okay, am I doing this right? Did I put in my address? But I was like, Mom, you're fine. Just like type it in. We got to get you scheduled for tomorrow. So like we know that you don't have COVID.
Yeah, and writing
It's like
those
I
directions, right, is so hard. Like, so we had like, a lot of the technology instructions in Highline translated into the most frequently used languages. So like from surveys, we know we have a large majority of Spanish speaking families, of course, and families that speak Vietnamese, which is good because the school district has people that work for it that are fluent in those languages. But then to get things translated in like Tagalog or Amharic or Cantonese or Mandarin or Korean is like, oh man, like sometimes I think they just asked whoever, because we get feedback right from the parents like, who wrote these directions? Like, I don't understand them. I'm like, well, I definitely don't understand them. I apologize. Is there some way I can connect you to somebody both conversant in that language and also technologically competent enough to give you the instructions to do the thing?
yeah, that stuff is so hard to do remote.
Yes, gosh, it feels like, like yeah, even like getting like the students like, to sign on to the apps and stuff. Like it's like I feel like I'm a doctor wearing a blindfold, talking on a telephone, telling somebody else who's trying to be a doctor, like operating on somebody, like hold the scalpel, don't cut their neck, no, over their chest, make a Y incision. Yeah, it's painful to. Thankfully this year I feel like the students in my class are very technologically savvy. If not technologically savvy, most of the kids are very patient. Yeah, which is good because I can totally see, man, like if you're a kindergarten teacher, gosh, first grade teacher, it's probably hell. If I can say that, it's probably hell for some of those families and those kids right now because they've never like done as much online, right, as like the older grades. So yeah, I can't even imagine.
And even the physical act of having to be in front of a screen like that is a new thing for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those kids are probably bouncing off the walls. Even the fifth graders bounce off. I talked about like, hey, like if you need something, need a stuffy, go ahead, hug a stuffy. I don't care. In fact, I want you to if that's what helps you to relax and just be calm. Yeah.
So Garrett, our next question is, are there any joys of being a teacher right now? It doesn't seem like this has sucked out any joy from you, but
yeah, every time I'm tempted to be overwhelmed with all the bad stuff, I try to think like how fortunate at least we are to like live in the internet world to like do this. Like imagine like doing this whole online school. Like if I was a teacher like in, I don't know, the 40s or something, I'd be like driving around dropping off paper textbooks to like students and things like that. Or I mean, for my own situation, like both my kids are doing online school too, and I'm just so glad that they like it. I mean, school itself is kind of sometimes give or take for my kids, but they at least like being able to see their friends and do the work, and so I feel like I'm not freaking out. But as a teacher in general, like this year's class is just so cool, and this group of students, because they had to do it last year in fourth grade, this is where being a fifth grade teacher pays off. Some people do not like teaching older kids because they don't like asking or they don't like answering the questions that fifth graders ask, or they don't like dealing with like the more developing brain. But I like it, and I feel like with fifth graders you can have kind of more of those real conversations. I mean, to me, I feel like there's so many things that are okay right now. So I try to always tell the students like, okay, well, we're online right now. Let's take advantage of it. So I mean, like today, literally, we finished a reading and writing lesson early, and we still had time left. And so instead of like doing more work, I asked the students as like, you remember how we were writing those essays about like food that makes you feel happy? I was like, let's just watch this video of this art lesson I found, because there's this art channel. Sometimes I've used his videos in the past, and it's just funny because he just does these like silly cartoon drawings, and it was like a rocket popsicle or a cheesecake with like a cartoon face, very very like kawaii emoji type like pictures, but it's just fun. So we could just sit and do it. And so fifth grade is is kind of cool because I feel like it's the age where you can still do those like kid stuff and they like it, even if they don't want to admit that it's fun to draw a cartoon popsicle or a cartoon cheesecake. But they're old enough that they are like, technologically and just skill-wise proficient enough to do whatever the art is, right? They're not going to get frustrated on like, how do I hold a pen, right? Which I could totally see, as a kindergarten teacher, like, oh man, like trying to instruct a kindergartner over the internet, like, here's how you write the letter A. Like that's probably not very fun right now. Versus like, I can like pull up videos of fun things like that. Like, it's a good age group. Like some of my fifth graders who graduated last year, now they're in sixth grade, so they send me messages too about class. So it's a good age to teach. It is joyful because, of all the things that could go wrong, definitely talking to this age group over the internet is not so bad. Yeah, I enjoy it still, thankfully.
How can us as SPAAC support you as an educator?
Yeah, and hopefully this doesn't sound corny because I know we are a very prayerful group, but I'm just so thankful anytime people say they're praying for teachers, they're praying for families, they're praying for kids, because I feel like that's what we need. And for a lot of teachers who I know who maybe don't have like a family environment like I do, like teachers, who are older single people, I know that can be hard. I guess if SPAAC members have friends who are teachers, like, check in on us, like, you can send an email or send card. I owe SPAAC people a bunch of like snail mail. I have like a pile. Me and my kids have been slowly like making our postcards and fun stuff. Yeah. But yeah, prayer support is important. And just, I think also if you know people who have kids or families, and just being also like, supportive in that, like, whatever family needs. I know for some families, like, support might be like, hey, can you just like, grab me some groceries because I'm too busy grocery shop, or can you like just talk to my kid over the internet, or play a game with them over the internet, or something like that. Because with all of this physical isolation, I think the forced social isolation or unintentional forced social isolation is the hardest part. Yeah. And then I know for some people, talking through Zoom or talking through like, video, it might provide some like comfort or support. I know it's different for every person, I feel like. So I feel like whatever support you can give families and kids, it helps teachers because the cascade effect of like, the less stressed parents and teachers are, the more me as a teacher I'm able to help those parents and kids. And it is tough. I mean, most schools, including mine, we have like, a family liaison, usually one person, right? Even in a school with like 400 or 500 kids, it's still just one person who's in charge often of like connecting families to resources. And sometimes it's just so hard because, there's just so many like needs right now, like, people who are out of work, families that need like, housing support, families that even need sometimes like just really like small stuff. Like remember one time we got a call at the school and a family they just didn't have any paper or pens in their house, right? Because it was the like last thing in priority of them taking care of all their other needs, right? Food and clothing and utilities. And so for a while outside of our school, it was really cool. Our PTA and some of the teachers organized it. We just had like a free like pickup where you can just come by. We have like, bins outside. They're labeled by grade level. And then you can just take whatever you need, whether it was like paper, pens, markers. Some teachers started putting together like activity kits, like make a bracelet. All the supplies are in this Ziploc bag, like stuff like that, which is like, when you think about it, like very simple, but that's what some families needed, is they just needed like those small things in the moment, and we were able to provide it. So for people out there in SPAAC who know families with kids, like, yeah, there's just lots of small things. You don't feel like you have to be like, I must become a teacher and log on and teach over Zoom too. I mean, you could if you want, that'd be great. But I think tons of small things are just as impactful as anything big that I think we normally associate with support. Not to say those things aren't important, because they are definitely important, but I think small things also are important.
Awesome. Thank you. Do you have any questions for us?
Do you have any questions? Yeah, how is SPAAC Church going? How's SPAAC Church going over the internet? Internet church.
Well, considering that the last service we had was for Pride, was that June? End of June? We don't know what we're doing.
Oh.
Yeah, it's weird. Well, I think it's weird because we have kind of started a lot of our stuff online to begin with, and then when churches, in addition to everything else, but when churches started like being super AV production, online church stuff, it just felt like more screen time for church didn't really feel spiritually nourishing. And so at least in the last like month, I and I just kind of like recalibrating ourselves to figure out like where our SPAAC niche is in terms of like the digital church landscape. So we're just gonna try a bunch of stuff and see what sticks. And in the meantime, this is kind of what we're coming up with, because I think SPAAC people haven't seen each other in a long time.
Yeah. No, I hope it helps. I can't find it, but it popped up because you know how like a lot of like apps do like the time hop or time travel, which I love because I feel like now that so much is like online, I can remember stuff. But
yeah,
the SPAAC yoga photos popped up on my like, remember this from a year ago? So I should send you guys some of the pictures if you don't already have it, but all the cute ones of like me and Seona. Gideon was taking pictures with my phone because he didn't want to do the yoga, which I'm cool with. But I was like, oh, I remember that. That's so good. Because I think that was also a weekend Siobhan was out of town. I can't remember if she's visiting family or doing something, but it was like a fun like dad kid thing. And it was just perfect that you guys had the SPAAC yoga on that weekend. It's like, yes, something I could take my kids to. That's fun, safe. The people are okay. I don't have to worry about anybody being bad or crazy. Yeah.